Hello class 8, we'll continue the chapter called ecosystem. Last time we had a talk about food web, and today also we'll begin the class with the definition of food web itself. Alright, so as you all know that what food web is, it is a network of several interconnecting food chains. Alright, as you see here in the diagram also. And we'll mainly talk about the advantage of food web in this particular session. See, advantage of food web. There in the food web you see the number of interconnecting food chains. Suppose in one particular food chain, suppose the organisms of one trophic level are suppose vanished, are extinct by some chances, then the organisms of the higher trophic level, which are depending on the organisms which are just now vanished, okay, which are suppose extinct, will not be suffering. Why? Because these organisms of that trophic level have other options also for their food. For example, you see, okay, here vegetation is the one which is eaten up by beetle, and beetle is eaten up by fox, making one food chain. Similarly, vegetation is eaten up by rat, and rat is eaten up by fox, another food chain. So in this case, suppose beetle is extinct, no beetle is there in that ecosystem, beetle is all now vanished from that ecosystem. So this fox will not be suffering, okay, it will not be having any problem because there is another option. So fox can be surviving, or rat also. All right, similarly in other cases, suppose rabbit is vanished from that ecosystem, is extinct from that ecosystem by some chances. Okay, this stoat will not be suffering. Why? Because there are other options for its food, because stoat can be surviving on rat also. So this is how your food web provides lot of options for the food to the organisms of the different trophic levels. So that's the main advantage of the food web. Okay. Okay, now we'll see food pyramids. Before going into food pyramids, let us know the meaning of pyramids. As you all know, is a figure, is a shape which has a large base and narrow at its trophic level. Narrower at its trophic level, which means as it goes upwards, you find the figure getting narrower and narrower, and on the top it is pointed. So that figure is called pyramid. All right. So food pyramid. So as you see, any food chain, the same thing can be imagined, or the same type of pyramid can be formed. So there are two types of pyramids, that is pyramid of number and pyramid of biomass. That means food pyramid with regard to the number of the organisms in the different trophic level of that ecosystem or of any ecosystem. In the same way, the food pyramid of biomass. Biomass means out here the mass. Mass means the quantity of matter contained in the body. Okay, that is a mass. So food pyramid of mass of the different organisms of different trophic levels. All right. So here in the first, your pyramid of number, food pyramid of number. Let us talk about it. As you see the figure, what you can see out here is that at the base, in this figure, at the base you find the millions of grass twigs. Millions of grass twigs, followed by hundreds of deers, and on the top you find dozens of tigers. Dozens of tigers. Just imagine, any ecosystem. So, or let us say a forest ecosystem. What you find there is that you find the plants or vegetation maximum. Then you find the herbivores, let us say deers or rabbits. Okay. Then you just imagine the tigers, which you find very minimum in numbers. Okay, that means very less in numbers. All right. So in this figure also it has been said like that. Say the grasses you find huge in numbers, that is millions, which is maximum. Then your deers in hundreds. Then your tigers in dozens. All right. In other way, let us say in other way, a full-grown tiger must have eaten a number of deers in its lifetime. Not only one deer, but must have eaten a number of deers in its lifetime. Similarly, those deers which have been eaten up by tigers must have eaten thousands and thousands or millions of the grass twigs. Okay, so that way, just imagine the figure with regard to the food. You find exactly the figure like this, which is called pyramid of numbers. Pyramid of numbers or food pyramid with regard to the numbers of those organisms in these different trophic levels. Similarly, here in the food pyramid of biomass also, biomass, where we consider not the number, this is the number, we are finished, but exactly the same type of figure is formed even with regard to the biomass or the quantity of matters contained in those organisms of the different trophic levels of that ecosystem. See here. Here at the base you find those grasses. You find the quantity of those grasses maximum, followed by the quantity of matter contained in the deers lesser than this. Then the mass of the tigers least. Okay, which is forming this pyramid. Okay, exactly like that. So in other way, let us say the quantity of matter contained in those grasses eaten up by deers, is maximum or is more than the mass of the deers that have eaten the grasses here. Similarly, the mass of those deers which were eaten up by the tigers is more than the mass of the tigers that have eaten up the deers. That means on the top the mass is least. Alright, so at the base it is maximum, then in the second trophic level it is lesser, and on the top, on the final trophic level it is least. So here also we find the shape to be pyramid, whether it is with respect to the number of the organisms or with respect to the biomass of the organisms, it is the pyramid. So these types of pyramids actually are called food pyramids. Okay, in any food chain you see the the shape of those organisms with regard to the numbers in the food becomes like this. So this is all about your food pyramid. Dependence between organisms. Right. So as you go to any type of ecosystems, there you find a very close relationship among the different kinds of organisms living there. All right. Let us see the different forms of life there in any ecosystem, like plants, animals, or microbes. Okay, it's not that plants only benefit animals and microbes, but equally animals and microbes also provide some benefits to the plants. Okay, you see here, no matter plants provide the food to the animals, it also provides oxygen to the living world. That's okay, but animals also equally do for the plants. For example, you see plants, when they grow up and bear fruit and flowers, no, the flowers need to be pollinated. So for the pollination also animals play their role. Okay, so animals are the ones which carry the pollen grains from one flower to the another flower. All right, not only that, for the dispersal of fruits also animals do play their roles. That means after the fruits are born there in the plants, animals carry them to the distant places so that they grow better in those distant places, which means dispersal of the fruits is possible by means of animals also. There are some agents also, but among them animals are also the ones which make the dispersal of fruits possible. Alright, beside this, microbes are the other groups of the organisms living there in ecosystem. So microbes, convert the nutrient contents of the plants and animals after their death into the soil. Okay, they will return back all the nutrients contents of the plants and animals after their death to the soil, so that soil gets enriched with all those nutrients and are made available to the plants. All right, so microbes are the ones which convert those inorganic substances so that they can be absorbed by the plants. So for all these reasons, plants have to depend upon the microbes also. So looking at it, what you can understand is that it's not that plants only benefit them, but plants are also equally benefited by them, which means they have got very good interrelationships there in the ecosystem, which is called interdependence between organisms. This is how the organisms of any ecosystem sustain their life there, or this is how the ecosystem exists in the nature. Relationship among the different organisms living in any ecosystem, there are symbiosis, parasitism and predation. Symbiosis is a type of relationship where both the organisms participating in that relationship are equally benefited. For example, plants and animals, plants and animals where both are equally benefited. Okay, so animals support the plants for pollination. Animals, transfer the pollen grains from one flower to another flower. Okay, not only that, even animals do the dispersal of the seeds and fruits from the plants to the distant places where they can grow better. Alright, so this is what you see being done by animals for the plants. But in turn, plants provide the food to the animals. Okay, so here we find both plants and animals mutually getting benefited. Alright, so other example is there where you see lichen, L-I-C-H-E-N, lichen is a kind of organism where you find the combination of two different kinds of species, that is alga and fungus. Alga and a singular form of algae and fungus living together. So alga manufactures the food by photosynthesis for both of them, like for alga and for fungus also, whereas fungus provides shelter and support to the alga. So that way they are mutually benefited. So that kind of mutual benefit, is your symbiosis. So that kind of relationship is called symbiosis, where both are benefited. Second one is a parasitism. Parasitism is a type of relationship where between the two participants in that relationship, one gets benefited, the other one gets hurt, other one loses something. For example, you see a roundworm and your human beings. roundworm and human beings. See here. So roundworm gets benefited, whereas human being gets hurt. Human being loses something. So here only one gets benefited. Parasites gets benefited, whereas host loses something. So here, so this kind of relationship is called parasitism. The next is your predation, where one loses life to the predator, to the other one. So here, for example, you see deer and tiger. Deer and tiger. So in this relationship, what you find is that deer loses its life to tiger. That means who is benefited out here? The predator. Tiger is benefited, whereas the deer, you see losing its life. So this kind of relationship is called predation. So these three different kinds of relationships can be seen in the ecosystem, okay, or among the different kinds of organisms in any kinds of ecosystem. So this is all about your relationship now, okay. So now at the towards the end of your chapter, what is also there is that risks to ecosystem. See, so this kind of relationship you find there in the ecosystem, and it should be there, for which the different forms of life should be in the correct proportion, okay. But right now, as you see the situation, you find very different. You see the plants less than what is supposed to be there, and in the same way the organisms of the second trophic level are very less or more than what is supposed to be there. So that way it is not in a balanced form. Consequently, what is happening is that it is risking the ecosystem there. So ecosystem is greatly getting hampered from all those kinds of disproportionate forms of life there, disproportionate numbers of life there in the different trophic levels in that ecosystem. So that way the ecosystem is getting affected. So it's mainly because of the overpopulation of human beings. Human beings population is highly increasing. The more the population, the more the demands will be there, and to meet up the demands, the more exploitation of the natural things is there. So that way it is causing some problem there in the ecosystem. Secondly, over exploitation. So where human beings are exploiting the natural resources more than the limit. So we are going beyond the limit. We are exploiting the natural resources so that the natural resources are getting depleted or getting exhausted. So that way in the near future, the many of the natural resources may not be there, and consequently the ecosystem may be greatly hampered. That way, for deforestation, another important problem that we are causing now is your deforestation. We are randomly cutting down the trees. We are felling down the trees. All right. So that way also the area in which the forest is supposed to be there is day by day decreasing. It could be all because of the overpopulation. Why? Because when the population increases, the nearby areas where the forest is there will be encroached upon by them for making their establishments. So consequently, what is happening is that deforestation takes place. So that way it is hampering the ecosystem, especially the organisms living in that ecosystem. Then illegal hunting and poaching. We are killing the animals mercilessly for a number of reasons, okay, illegally. So that we also the organisms of the different trophic levels are not in the correct proportions. Either they are less, usually it is less only, okay. So usually you see the number of tiger is dwindling now, it is going down. So that way, and another important the factor which is risking the ecosystem is your industrialization now. So for our benefits and comfort, we are using a lot of industrial goods, and which are all coming out of the industries only, and all those industries run at the expense of the natural resources there, and they use the different kinds of chemicals there, they use the different kinds of fuels there, from where the different kinds of poisonous gases come out, and they all go to the atmosphere and poisoning the atmosphere, which may not be good to the life of different things there in the ecosystem, different forms of life there in the ecosystem. So that way it is all risking the ecosystem. Then what shall we do then? So it is very important to take care of all those natural resources there in the ecosystem. So all those things whatever we are doing out here need to be checked by ourselves. We need to do so many things there in the ecosystem, but it should all be done in a very prudent way, so that on one way we can make use of them, and on the other way they can also be preserved, so that they can be made available for the future generations as well. So that way we can take care of our ecosystems. Okay, so this is how we conclude the chapter, and in the next session we will go ahead with the new chapter. Okay, thank you very much.